in tongues just to thank you. If I were Chinese, I'd say oh dear. If I were Danish, I'd say mangatat. If I were Italian, I'd say grazia. If I were Hebrew, I'd say toda raba. If I were Greek, I would say Eucharisto. If I were Japanese, I'd say domo arigato. If I were Portuguese, I'd say obrigado. If I were Spanish, I'd say muchas gracias. If I were German, I'd say danke schön. If I were French, I'd say merci beaucoup. If I were Russian, I'd say spasiba. If I were Kenyan, I'd say ashanta. If I were Nigerian, I'd say eje pupu. If I were Zulu, I'd say ingia bonga. If I were Sutu, I'd say keyaliboha. If I were deaf, I'd say, but since I am who I am, and I got what I got, and I feel what I feel, I'll just say thank you, praise your name, amen.
This is the day that the Lord has made. I don't know about you, but I will rejoice and be glad in it. So with that said, it doesn't matter how you feel, what you may be going through. You may be feeling up, you may be feeling down. God's still worthy to be praised. Anybody got a thank you in their mind? Give thanks. Come on.
Listen, I'm just talking and y'all can't hear me because I got myself on mute. Listen, I am just talking and none of you can hear me because I have myself on mute. Okay, I am unmuted. How y'all doing? See, it's starting already. Y'all not praying for me. See, that's what it is. I know what it is. So uh listen, welcome to Wednesday night Bible study. Um and it's a this is what I was saying. It's a hot Wednesday night. And I'm hoping that you have a fan or some air conditioning or something cool to drink. I have my little water thing right here. And can you can you hear the ice? Can you hear the ice? So, you know, yeah, it's hot. So listen, make sure that um, that you stay cool while the heat is circulating around here. We don't get a lot of heat days like in Texas or Arizona or crazy places like that. But when it get hot, it get hot. And because we're not used to extreme heat, when it hits, we like super miserable. So, yeah, make sure that you are taking care of yourself physically and mentally and all of that. Okay. So, welcome to Wednesday night Bible study. As you're here, please make sure that as you're jumping in, that you're greeting other people in the chat, being nice and friendly, welcoming them. If you haven't seen them before or don't know their names, make sure you introduce yourself to them and welcome other people to the chat. Remember, we are a family expecting guests. And so we don't want to be expecting guests and folk come in the chat and we don't say nothing to them. All right. So let's make sure that we do that. Before we get started, there's just a couple of things that I want to say. So this Saturday we have unfortunately, we have a funeral for Miss Patsy Linder. They just got married about a month ago, but Miss Patsy passed away. And so her funeral is going to be this Saturday at the church. And so, we, again, we'll be there celebrating her life and her legacy, and be there, supporting the family, her husband, her brother, and sisters, and man, just wrapping our arms around them and letting them know that we love them in their time of bereavement. And then just yesterday, or day before yesterday, and really like early in the morning, our own brother Chris Jackson passed away. And so we want to make sure that that we keep his family in our prayers and lift up Miss Aisha and his daughter Caitlin, as well as the rest of the family. And we'll be giving you guys information about services as things progress with that. It's still really new and fresh, so please make sure that you lift Aisha and family up in your prayers. If you could do that, that would be very, very wonderful. We're grateful for all that you do. And if you have her number or whatnot, check in on her, give her a call, check in on her, make sure she's okay, see if there's anything that she needs, right? So it's just what we do. It's how we love people. Okay. So let's make sure that we do that. So this Saturday is the funeral for Miss Pat, and then we'll give you updated information about Chris. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that this Sunday we're going to be starting a new sermon series. You might have saw the advertisements when we first started the broadcast, but we're going to be starting a new sermon series called Ecclesia. All right, can you guys say that with me? Right, Ecclesia. Right, that's what it's called, Ecclesia. And it is ecclesia is the Greek word for church. Okay, it is the Greek word for church. And so we're going to be doing a study on the church itself. And one of the things that I have
and you guys will hear me say this again, but one of the things that I have noticed is there are a lot of inconsistencies between perhaps the way that the church works and functions and what Jesus actually launched. And I think it's because, to a certain degree, we tend to get away from what the church actually is and how it functions. And so I'm going to be doing a study on the church. And so this is going to be very, very informative and enlightening, and for many of us, extremely helpful. And so, what I'm going to ask that you would do, number one, is that you would be there. But number two, bring somebody with you, right? And I'm serious about that. I want you to bring someone with you, and not just any old person. So I don't want you to go and pull somebody out of their own church service and have them come to PFBC. No, I want you to bring people who either are done with church, they said they were done with it, or um, they don't know anything about church. They're just kind of novice to what church is. Um, or people who have experienced some type of, church hurt or difficulties or what have you. Um, I would like for you to bring someone with you so that we can create a new narrative of and help all of us really to understand what this thing called church really is and what Jesus intended by it when he created it. So if you could please do that, I would be so grateful. So once again, Sunday, starting a brand new sermon series. And I need for you guys to be there, but I want you to invite someone with you. And I want to meet the person that you bring. And so when you bring them, make sure I'll please make sure that I get a chance to meet them. Okay. All right. Now, before we get started, there's one last prayer request that I have, and I wanted to separate this from the others. But the one last prayer request that I have is that we would lift up CJ. And CJ is the son of Miss Rosanna, right? Miss Rosanna Clark. And so I want to, for us to be able to lift up and pray for her son CJ. And so he is experiencing some medical challenges that are life threatening. He had surgery today, and from what I hear, his surgery went well. So that's a praise report. But I want us to continue to lift him up and ask God to bless and heal him. Um, yeah. So if we can do that, that would be grateful. We would be grateful. Okay. So let us go ahead and pray, and then we'll get started with our Bible study tonight. Um, so let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for blessing all of us to be on tonight. We thank you for those who are coming, who will log in shortly. Father, I'm asking at this moment that you would please be with us and join us as we set out to study your word and to learn more about you. Father, please open your word in such a way that we can't miss what you want to share. Open our ears, our hearts, our minds, so that we may receive what you want to deposit on the inside of us. And we ask that you would do it all in Jesus' mighty name. Lord, at this moment, we're facing some challenges as a church, and you know it. You know what those challenges are. We are facing physical illnesses and some deaths. And nothing is a shock to you, but God, we just lift up the families of Miss Pat, her husband Fred, um, and all of the family that surrounds her that's touched deeply by her death. God, I'm asking that you would please comfort them, that you would please provide peace for them, that you would give them what they need to make it through this difficult and challenging moment in their lives. And Lord, I lift up Aisha and Caitlin to you. Um, Thank you for the life of Chris and who he's been and what he's done. And the impact that he's made on our lives. But God, I lift up his wife and child at this moment, as well as the rest of the family, but particularly his wife and child. And I ask, Lord, that you would comfort their hearts, that you would bless them, that you would touch them, that you would give them peace that passes all understanding, um, so that they will be able to recognize that they are literally being kept by your great power. So comfort them at this moment. Lord, I lift up CJ and ask that you would continue to bless him. We thank you and praise you for the praise report today of a successful surgery. But Father, moving forward, we're asking that you would continue to heal his body and restore him to 100% health. And bless Rosanna as she is doing the job of a mother and taking care of her son. Restore her. Restore her mind and her emotions, her energy, and her strength. And God, we just ask that you would do all of these things in your son, Jesus' mighty name. Amen. All right. So listen, we are about to hit it. So here we go. So several weeks ago, we started a Bible study called Beneath the Surface, which is a look at the at kind of getting underneath the depths of who we are and understanding what's going on inside of us, because we're finally going beneath the surface and seeing what all is under there and dealing with it. Okay, so we started with this, right? This is our image, right? This image here. And so the focus was we've been looking at a iceberg, because an iceberg only shows 10% of what it actually is, and 90% of it is beneath the surface. And this causes a lot of problems when ships are coming along, because they can see this, but they can't see all of this. Likewise, for many of us, for most of us, even when we enter into relationships, we only show about 10%. People only meet the 10% of us that we decide to show. And it's not until we get into deeper relationships, or the relationships last past a couple of months or a couple of years, that you actually start getting into what is beneath the surface. And I'd be willing to say 100% of the time, one of the reasons why relationships die and marriages sink and fail and all of that is not because of the 10%. It's the 90% that's beneath the surface that actually causes us to shipwreck in various areas of our lives. Not just relationally, but we'll get shipwrecked relationally. We'll get shipwrecked financially. We'll get shipwrecked socially. We'll get shipwrecked vocationally. Like you name it. All of these shipwrecks that we tend to find ourselves into, if you kind of trace it back to the culprit is the 90% beneath the surface that we haven't paid attention to, that we desperately need to pay attention to. All right. So that's kind of where we've been. And I won't go too far back, but I want to recap where we left off, because it's been 2 weeks since we've met. So I want to recap where we left off, and I'll put some new stuff in it, and then we'll get into the new stuff for tonight. There's a part of the recap that we're going to do, and you'll see me passing over stuff pretty quick. The stuff that I'm passing over pretty quick is the stuff that we've already covered. Again, I just want to hit it just for a reminder. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's see. Let me go here. Okay. So under the water line, this is where we picked up last time. So under the water line. So when we're talking about under the water line, we're talking about this. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 through 27. It says this: "My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart." So notice all of the buildup, right? Notice all of the buildup that the writer is putting into what he's about to say. He says, my son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words, right? So pay attention to what I'm about to say. That's one emphasis. Turn your ear to my words. That's the second emphasis. Do not let them out of your sight. That's the third emphasis. Keep them within your heart. That's a fourth emphasis. For they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. Above all else, now he's about to get into it, right? 5 emphases before he gets into it. Verse 23, above all else, meaning the most important thing to do, right? Above anything else, he says, give this top priority. Don't hear this and ignore it. Give it priority in your life. Above all else, he says, verse 23, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Right? Everything you do flows from it. That is a major, major, major statement. Because what he's saying is, everything you and I do in life, everything, every decision you make, every behavior you have, what he's saying is it's a heart issue. Right? And I'm not just talking about the bad stuff, it's the good stuff too. The good stuff is a heart issue, meaning you got some good stuff in your heart. But the bad stuff is also a heart issue. Right? It's a heart issue. See, one of the things that we like to do, how can I say it? One of the things that we do is we brag about keeping it real, right? I'm keeping it 100. I'm keeping it a buck. I just tell the truth. We like to tell the truth about other people. We not so much about ourselves though. Right? We don't do great about telling the truth about ourselves. And so because what we want to do is we often want to behave in certain ways and then say, but that's really not me. Yes, it is. Listen, it is. It's you. Right? Now, it may be the part of you don't want to admit. It may be the part of you that you don't want to be a part of you. It may be a part of you that you hate, but it's kind of like Paul in Romans 7. You know, what I know to do, those are the things I don't do, and the things that I hate, those are the things I find myself doing, right? And so all of us recognize that inside of ourselves. We all recognize that. And so the whole point is, he says, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So let's just reality check right quick. Every single thing you and I do, every behavior that we have, whether it be positive or negative, is a sum total result of what's in our heart, right? If it wasn't in our heart, we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't. Listen to me. There's a bunch of stuff that you guys don't do, right? There's a bunch of stuff. There's a ton of stuff that you would never do, right? Like you just, man, it ain't you. It's not you. Some of you, like you could never be a thief. Like never. You don't even think that way. It's just not a part of who you are. Why? That's not in your heart. Right? But you cut somebody out though. Right? You ain't gonna steal, right? But I cut you out. Why? Because stealing is not in your heart, but cussing somebody out is. Right? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I just don't want us to constantly think, right, that we can ignore the things that are in our heart. because what the text is teaching us is that everything is a heart issue. Let's go back. Verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Everything you do. If you have your Bibles open, I need you to underline that. Everything you do flows from it. Did you get that? Everything you do flows from it. Verse 24, keep your mouth free. And then here he's starting to give. And I think what he's doing here is he's actually telling us how to guard our hearts. So he says in verse 25, verse 24, keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. Okay? Everybody got that so far? Everybody got that? So he's telling us to guard our hearts and make it a priority. And then I think what he's also doing is he's telling us how to do it. And it has something to do with our mouth. It has something to do with our eyes, and it has something to do with our feet. All right. And so let's look at why the heart is important. The first reason is because everything we do flows from it. That's super, super clear. But let me tell you why else this heart thing is important. The Bible warns us about several things, right? So write these down. This will help you. Either that or take a screen photo. This will help you. The Bible warns us about several things. Okay, here we go. Number one, the Bible warns us about a deceiving heart. Okay, the Bible warns us about a deceiving heart. Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 17, verse 9. The heart is what? Deceitful above all things. Did you get that? And beyond cure, who can understand it? So I want you to notice something. Notice what he says in Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitful. And then here's these same three words, above all things, right? Above all things. So, and if you go back, right, here's what he says in verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, right? So like, why is he saying above all things, guard your heart? Because the text is already telling us that our hearts are deceitful above all things. So that, in other words, let me see if I can make it clear. Your and my hearts, right? Our hearts, right? Our hearts are bent. They are bent. They are curved. They naturally go in the way of deception. Meaning this, not that we are deceiving other people, but we are deceiving ourselves. You missed it? I'll give it to you again. The big problem with our hearts is not so much that we deceive other people. If we deceive other people, that comes from our hearts too. But the big problem with our hearts is that we're self-deceiving. Meaning what? Meaning we have a great propensity to lie to ourselves about ourselves on a regular basis. If you recognize that, if you recognize that's you, go on and throw your hand up. Let me know. Right? Talk to me in the chat and let me know. If what I just said, if you recognize that's you, go on and identify yourself. Right? Just, it's me. Right? It's me, oh Lord. Right? And so, because the text says the heart is deceitful above all things, meaning the most important thing to our hearts is that we look good. What's the most important thing to our hearts? The most important thing to our hearts is that we look good. Not that we be good, but that we look good. And as a result, we lie to ourselves to make us feel better about ourselves all the time. We lie about how we look. We lie about how we act. We lie about how we talk to people. We lie. And again, not that we're lying to other people. We lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves. And it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I didn't, that was just a little bit. I can listen, we're lying to ourselves. Right? All the time. All the time. Like, oh my God. I'm telling you, we have a great propensity to lie to ourselves about a lot of stuff because we want to make ourselves look good to us. Right? We don't want to deal with the fact that I am and fill in the blank. Right? Like, I'm telling you, that's a cold piece. Right? That's a cold piece. Right? I am and then fill in the blank. Right? Watch it. Let me give you something that's challenging. Let me challenge you. The last sin you committed. Right? The last sin you committed. Are you willing to say about you, I am a boom, whatever the last sin was you committed? Right? Right? I'm a glutton, right? I'm a adulterer. I'm a fornicator. I'm I'm a right. What's some other ones? I'm addicted to drugs. I'm a liar. I'm a gossiper. I'm negative. I'm right. Like what like name them. Like what else? What else? Right? Am I willing? Are we willing to say that about ourselves? Are we willing to admit? Right? Are we willing to admit that that's who we are? Right? Or do we want to separate who we are from what we do? Let me see what you typing. Let me see what you typing. Right? Can we? Are we willing to admit that? Right? Are we willing to admit those things? Right? And I would say this probably for the majority of us. Probably for the majority of us. We're more willing to talk about what we do separate from who we are. Because we have the ability to do what we do and know that we're better than what we're doing on this side. But we will identify with the better and we'll keep what we do, we'll keep it over here as just, it's an anomaly. It's something that I did. No. Everything is a heart issue. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. Everything is a heart issue. That's why it's important to guard your heart. Right? So the Bible warns us, right? Listen, people, watch this. The Bible warns us about a deceiving heart. So so I'm going to give you a list of these because the Bible warns us about different kinds of hearts. What I want you to do is I want you to try and see if you see one of these hearts in you. Okay? Right? Tell me if one of these hearts is in you. And so if you see your heart in here, just write down the main word. Just type it in and put deceiving, right? Or deceiving heart or whatever it is, right? If that's you, if that's your heart, right? Just go on. If you own that thing, just go on and put it in there, right? No harm, no foul, right? We family. Ain't no judgment here. We family, right? All of us got one of these. We struggling with something. Ain't no judgment. Okay, here we go. So the Bible warns us about a deceiving heart. Okay, now watch this. The Bible also warns us about a hard heart. Okay, Proverbs 28:14. Blessed is the man who always fears the Lord, but he who hardens his heart falls into trouble. So the Bible warns us about a hard heart. Okay, these are what I call heart traps. This is why the Bible says, above all things, guard your heart. Right? Why? Because there are heart traps in this life. And the first heart trap is a deceiving heart. The second heart trap is a hard heart. A hard heart is when a hard heart is when we get to the point where we stop caring about certain things. Right? We get to the point I don't care anymore. And I begin to lose empathy and I begin to lose sympathy in certain areas or for certain people. And when I begin to lose empathy or sympathy, and my heart, it's like I can't be moved, I can't be changed, right? I can't grow, I can't improve, right? And that's what happens when we have hard hearts. And the crazy part is Christians should have hard skin and soft hearts. But most often we have soft skin and hard hearts. Right? That's often our problem. And so is your heart hard? Right? Do you have a hardened heart? Okay, here we go. The Bible also warns us about a proud heart. Okay, the Bible also warns us about a proud heart. So Proverbs 21:4, haughty eyes, a proud heart, and evil actions are all sin. Right? They're all sin. And so this proud heart, this is this heart where, listen, and this pride thing is tough, right? The pride part, oh man, the prideful heart is difficult because pride can look like humility. You missed it, I'll give it to you again. Pride can look like humility. In other words, if my goal is to convince other people that I'm humble, I'm proud that I'm humble. Right? I'm taking pride in my humility. Well, it's an oxymoronic statement, but I'm taking pride in my humility. So this is another heart trap, this pride heart. This pride heart will also keep you from receiving help. Pride heart. The pride heart will also keep you from receiving compliments. Pride heart. The pride heart will also keep you from asking for help. Pride heart. The pride heart will also keep you holding grudges. Right? The pride heart. The pride heart will prevent you from helping people that need help, even if you don't like them, or even if they've messed you up or tried to mess you over in some kind of way in the past. If they are an enemy, a prideful heart will not seek to help an enemy. That's a heart trap. It's a heart trap, right? And so it's a prideful heart. The Bible warns us against a prideful heart. The Bible also warns us against an unbelieving heart. Okay? An unbelieving heart. Hebrews chapter 3, verse 12. See to it, brothers, that none of you has a sinful, here it is, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. So an unbelieving heart is what happens when we just stop believing God for for things in life. We just stop trusting him. Right? We stop trusting him. You know, we prayed some prayers, we've asked God to do some things, and he didn't do it the way we asked him to do it. And as a result, like I'm cool on praying and asking God for stuff. Right? My heart becomes an unbelieving heart. It's where my faith begins to wane in trusting God for the things that I need in this life. And you can always tell an unbelieving heart, because what an unbelieving heart seeks to do, listen to me carefully. What an unbelieving heart seeks to do is it seeks to get legitimate needs met the wrong way. You missed it. I give it to you again. An unbelieving heart will always seek to get legitimate needs met the wrong way. Why? Because I've asked God to meet this need and he hasn't come through with it yet. So I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to do something that's sketchy or questionable or outright sinful in order to get this need met. That's an unbelieving heart. That is, let me give an example. An example of that is Abraham, right? God told Abraham that he was going to have a son. The problem was when God made the promise to Abraham, his wife Sarah was beyond the ability to actually bear children, and Abraham was getting older. So about 20 to 25 years away from, further in the future, when God made the promise, he made it like 20, 25 years earlier, but some 20, 25 years later, Abraham's still waiting on this promise of a son to come through, and it has not happened. So what do he and Sarah do? They take matters into their own hands. And Abraham goes in and sleeps with Hagar, and they have another son, Ishmael. And from that, just all types of issues and problems historically. A lot of the stuff that we see going on in the Middle East, all of that is a family issue. It is based on the two offsprings of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. I mean, Isaac and Ishmael, right? And so, but that's Abraham. Abraham had a promise from God that God would meet his need, that God would bless him with something. But God was taking too long. And because God was taking too long, he stopped trusting. He stopped believing. And as a result, he took matters into his own hands. That's what an unbelieving heart will always do. It will seek to meet legitimate needs the wrong way. Okay. Then the Bible warns us of a cold heart, right? A cold heart. Matthew 24, verse 8, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. Okay? A cold heart, right? Cold heart. This is, again, kind of getting back to people who just don't feel, right? Don't care, right? Just, you know what I mean? Like it's easy for, like I would say this, a cold heart is kind of like a heart that's calloused. Right? A callus, it's like a callus. So like if you work outside with your hands, you have calluses you'll get calluses in the palm of your hands. The thing about a callus is that the skin gets thick, and you develop this, what they call a callus. Here's the thing though. If you run your hand over a callus, you can feel yourself if you run your finger over it, you can feel that you've run your finger over the callus, but it doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't, you sense the pressure, but you don't feel, there's no sensitivity there. Right? And that's what a cold heart is. It's a heart that is not sensitive. It's being able to, how can I say? It's being able to look at things Watch this. It's being able to look at things that displease God and I'm no longer affected by it. It doesn't bother me anymore. Right? It doesn't bother us anymore. Things have become normal. Right? That's our hearts become cold. Right? Our hearts become cold. We listen, we drive by, we walk by, we see homelessness everywhere around us. But for the most part, if I just be honest, a lot of us don't feel it. We don't. We're sick of it, right? We feel it because it's an inconvenience to us and what we like to see. But in terms of the people that's actually living in it, we don't feel that, right? Again, not everybody, but I'm saying the large majority of people, we don't feel that, right? Now, years and years and years and years ago, right, when there wasn't a whole lot of homeless people, homeless populations, and people in tents and everywhere, when it wasn't that, right, and I'm sure some of you have been living long enough to remember that around here in the Bay Area, if you saw somebody on the streets, you felt that, right? You wanted to help them. You wanted to give them some money. You was wanting to buy them some food. You was wanting to, you know what I mean? You was really wanting to lend a helping hand. But the fact that it happens so often, it is so common, what ends up happening is, for a lot of us, we've just kind of grown cold to it. You know, we have. We've grown, so many of us as Christians, we've grown cold to cussing, to using inappropriate language. We've grown cold to it. So much so that we do it. Hey, shame the devil, tell the truth. We do, right? We do it. Like, it is not uncommon for us to hear Christians cussing. It's not uncommon. It should be, but it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for us to see. It's not uncommon now. It's not uncommon now for Christians to smoke weed. You know, get high and study the Bible. That's not uncommon now. That's common. You know what I mean? It's common for Christians to live together unmarried. That's common. It just is. It's common. Right? And so, to the extent, it doesn't, for many of us, it doesn't bother us anymore. We don't feel it anymore. Right? Again, not all of us. But for those that I'm talking to who are listening, and you're like, dang, that's me, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's a cold heart, right? That's a cold heart, right? Our love has grown cold, right? That's why we don't feel it, because we don't love the way that we should, right? We don't want the best for others the way that we should. And so our love has grown cold, right? So, yeah, all right. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. The Bible also warns us about an unclean heart. Okay, Mark chapter 7, verse 20. And then he added, it is what comes from inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from where? Come from where? Where they come from, y'all? Where do they come from? Somebody put it in the chat. Where do they come from? All of these things come from where? Where they come from? Right? Where are they coming from? Where they at though? Where these things at? Where do they come from? They come from within. Right? They come from within. They are what defile you. Did you get that? Did you get it? And so this is why he says, guard your heart. Because everything you do is a heart issue. And he says right there in Mark 7, all of these things come from the heart, right? Listen, all of these things. Watch what he says. He says, from out of a person's heart come evil thoughts, right? Evil thoughts, right? Thinking wrong. That's a heart issue. Sexual immorality. So this word, this is actually one word in the Greek. It is the word porneos, and the word porneos means it's so back in this culture you had these these were like these Greek and Roman bathhouses, and people would go in there to do all types of crazy sexual stuff. And the word that was printed at the top of the bathhouses was the word porneos. And so when the text uses this word porneos and it translates it sexual immorality, it's not just talking about fornication. It's talking about everything that took place inside of the porneos. So we're talking adultery, right? Where you're cheating on your spouse. We're talking fornication when you're having sex without being married. We're talking homosexuality, where one gender is having sex with the same gender. We're talking bestiality, where people are having sex with animals. We're talking about religious sexual sin, where people are having sex religiously as a sacrifice or a ritual to honor different God. Like all of this was going on inside of the porneos. So when the Bible uses this term, it's talking about all of that. And then you had your people who would go to the porneos just to watch, the voyeurs. Right? Then you had your people in there swinging, husbands and wives. Right? And everything swapping. And listen, I'm telling you, it was, oh man, listen, Diddy ain't had nothing on the Greeks and the Romans, nothing. And so when the word, so anyway, but here's what he says. All of that comes from the heart. Watch this. Theft comes from the heart. Murder comes from the heart. Adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, right? Wanting to do some stuff, even if you don't do it. Right. Listen, that's a cold piece. Envy, right? Slander, that's running your mouth when you shouldn't. That's lying on folks. Slander. You know what I mean? Pride and foolishness, right? Listen, I'm telling you, Bible's a cold piece. That's a cold piece. And the Bible says all of these things are heart issues, okay? Now, here we go. Let's get it. And then David says this in Psalm 139:23. David says, search me, O God, and know my heart. And you know what? God does. God does. People often say this, and and they'll say, well, God knows my heart. You know what? He really does. He really does. Right? And so here's the thing, right? Each one of these that I just listed, each one of these are traps for your heart. So the deceiving heart, the hard heart, the proud heart, the unbelieving heart, the cold heart, and the unclean heart. All of those are heart traps, which is why he says, above all things, guard your heart. Now, my question for you is, did you see your heart in there somewhere? Right? Did you see your heart in there? Is your heart in any one of those? Are you a person struggling with a deceitful heart, or a hard heart, or a proud heart? Are you struggling with an unbelieving heart, or a cold heart, or an unclean heart? Right? Is that you? Are you in there anywhere? Right? Are you in there? And this is why. So if you can say, right, so let me know. If you're in there, just let me know. Put a 1 in the chat or put your hand up. Let me know. If you saw yourself, your heart somewhere in there, let me know. And some of you might have saw it in like 2 or 3 places. Again, no judgment. It's okay. I just want you to acknowledge it at this point, right? Just acknowledge it. Tell me, talk to me, talk to us. We're family, right? We're brothers and sisters. We're family, right? Did you see your heart in there somewhere? Right? Did you see your heart in there somewhere? Right? Okay, here they come. Yep. Right? So if you saw your heart in there, this is exactly why. This is precisely why the text says, above all else, guard your heart. Because the tendency is we fall into these heart traps, and the heart traps are what's beneath the surface. So that as we go through life and we interact with people and with life, we often shipwreck, because what we haven't known is that our hearts are in these traps, and all of that stuff is beneath the surface. Like each one of those things produce things underneath the surface inside of us, and they cause a lot of problems. And so here's how he says to get control of it. Okay. He says this: control your mouth, right? Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Then he says, control your eyes, right? Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. And then he says, control your feet. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil. So those are the 3 ways that we actually get a hold of, or we begin to guard our hearts. Okay? Those are the ways we begin to guard our hearts. Now, when it comes to guarding your heart, you got to be careful, because guarding your heart has a lot to do with being careful about what gets in there first. See, that's what you got to be careful of. You have to guard your heart from the things that get in there that mess it up. Right? You gotta do that. You gotta be careful of that. And what he says is, the way that you do that is you got to control your mouth, and you got to control your eyes, and you got to control your feet. Now, we covered mouth last time, but I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into it this time because it's so important. Okay. So let me just go over these real quick. So this is what we talked about last time. Number 1, kill the negative self-talk, right? You got to kill the negative self-talk. And all of us have a certain degree of negative self-talk that we have to kill. Don't deny what is, right? And so there's a whole theology in the church now where, and I've heard people say it, it's this whole positive thinking, name it and claim it kind of stuff, where people are, where you just got to have faith and you trust, and, life and death is in the power of the tongue, and you don't speak negatively, and you don't speak. Listen to me. Like, all of that is, listen, that all that stuff, the way that they present that stuff is way out of context. And it is not biblical. It is actually New Age theology trying to pass itself off for biblical theology. And so you got to be careful. You can't, if you're sick, you don't speak faith by claiming that you're not sick. That's called lying. If you're sick, you're sick, and you don't deny what is. That's not faith, right? Denying something that actually is. No, you don't deny it. So you got to kill the negative self-talk, but don't deny what is. And then don't prematurely determine what will be, right? Like, you're not a prophet. You cannot tell the future. You don't have a crystal ball. And so don't prematurely determine what will be. Okay. And so we played the movie last time. I don't want to play that this time. Okay, hold on. Let me figure out how to move. Let me figure out how to move from the movie. Okay, there we go. Now, with those three things that we just said, I want us to read something. Okay, here we go. We've read this before. I probably should have put it on two different slides so it looks cleaner. But this is when God had Moses send spies into the promised land to bring back a report to the people, to tell the people that the land was exactly what God said it was. So verse 26 says this: they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account: we went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Right? So far, the people gave an accurate report of what was going on. They told the truth. They said what it was. It is what God says it is. It does have in it what God says it does have. And then they said, but it has these other things too. Like, there's a lot of folks over there, and they're pretty powerful, and they got big cities, and you know what I mean? All of that stuff. Now watch this. Let's go back. Verse 30. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Listen, you gotta love Caleb. You gotta love Caleb, because Caleb was on some blah, 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 blah. The people, the strength, blah, blah, blah. Caleb was on some God said, right? God said, that's ours. I think we should just go on and go do it. Right? Gotta love some Caleb. Okay. So Caleb heard everything that was, but what Caleb did, because he knew, right? Like, you gotta understand, he knows where these guys are going with the rest of this report. And so he cuts them off before they get going. It's really what's happening. He's cutting them off before they get to the bad, before they get to the other part, the bad part. And so, because he knows once everybody hears that, it's going to kill the faith of other people, right? He knows it. He knows it, right? Like, these cats have unfaithful hearts, right? As we just covered, they're in the unfaithful heart trap. And because they have unfaithful hearts, we're going to read the rest of the report, and you'll see what I mean. But Caleb is trying to stop them before they get to the unfaithful heart part, right? And he's like, okay, y'all be quiet. That's enough. We heard enough, right? It is what God says it is, right? And then there are some people over there, and they got big cities, and they powerful. Okay, good. Now, I think we should just go on and go do it, right? I think we should that's what Caleb said. Now, pick me up at the next part of the verse, verse 31. Watch what it says. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. Here they go. Here they go. Here they come. Right? Here they come. Watch this. But the men who had gone up with him, see, and you got to remember, Caleb went with them. So he knows them. He already knows what they're thinking. And he's trying to cut them off before they have a chance to clip everybody's faith. So verse 31, but the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. Verse 32, and they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. Really? Really? The land is eating people? Listen, the land devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. Really? Everybody? Everybody, dog? Everybody? Okay. Verse 33, we saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Oh my gosh, listen. This is why you gotta control your mouth. Right? This is why you gotta control your mouth. Because what they're doing is they're talking themselves out of God's will and blessing for their lives. And as a result of it, they ended up spending 40 years walking in circles because of this kind of stuff. Because of this kind of stuff. Right? So this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's important that we control our tongues. It's important that we control our mouths. Why? Because they're talking themselves out of God's blessing. They're talking themselves right out of what God is telling them to do. And how many of us have done that? How many of us have talked ourselves out of what God has called us to do, told us to do, commanded that we do? But we talked ourselves out of it. Right? I don't know if you've experienced that. I have. Listen, there's stuff I've talked myself. There are things that I have talked myself out of that I good and well know that that God called me to do, wanted me to do, but I was afraid or scared, or I was looking at, something on the other side of it, and I just didn't want to face it. And so I talked myself out of it. And who knows what blessings I missed for myself because I talked myself out of. Right? I talked myself out of the blessings of God for my life. Right? How many of you are willing to not leave me out here by myself and admit you've done the same thing at times? Right? You've done the same thing. You've talked yourself out of stuff. Or here's another one. You've let other people talk you out of stuff because they couldn't control their mouth. And because they couldn't control their mouth, they took their unfaithful heart, shared it with you, and your heart became unfaithful because somebody else couldn't control their mouth. Come on and talk to me. Right? Am I right? Am I right? Like I'm telling you. See, and here's what we have to understand. These things are contagious. They're not just, it's not just me. It's not just my heart. The reason why you guard your heart is because if you don't guard your heart, life will not be favorable for you in the long run because you'll be out of God's will, but also you will infect other people. And all of us Every single one of us has been affected by somebody else's heart traps. Because they didn't protect their heart and they found themselves in one of those traps. And because they found themselves in one of those traps, they weren't protecting their tongues. They weren't protecting their mouths. And they were just letting things fly. And I'm telling you, that stuff is catchy. It's catchy. It is contagious. Listen to me. Faithlessness is contagious. But so is faith. Faith is contagious. Listen, sin is contagious. Anger is contagious. Cussing is contagious. Cowardice is contagious. But so is righteousness, though. Anybody ever became better because you hung around somebody that was better, who wouldn't allow you to be less than who you really were, and you became better because you hung around them? Righteousness is contagious. Excellence is contagious. Better is contagious. Healing is contagious. See, this is why it's important that we guard our hearts. And it's, because whatever we are on the inside, we are a contagion for anybody and everybody hanging around us. Listen, oh man, please, if you don't get, man, please hear what I'm trying to tell you tonight. Please hear what I'm trying to tell you. Telling you. If there's some things that you want to do and you want to trust God more, listen, if you want to trust God more or love God more or what have you, or you want to be closer to God, I'm telling you, you probably have struggled with that for years. And you probably have been keeping things in your mind where you're saying, well, I'm going to do this. Well, okay, well, next week I'm going to start this. Okay, well, I'm going to start. And you probably have a whole lot of stop and starts along, all these years. And you're frustrated at some point because you haven't been able to do, but you still have the desire. Let me tell you what you're missing. You don't have anybody else in your life who is where you're trying to go, who has the passion that it takes to get where you want to go. And what you need is to find some people who feel it the way you feel it, who are passionate about it, who have better habits than you, and you need to hang around them. Because when you hang around them, you're going to catch it. Because it's contagious. I'm telling you, you cannot hang around a visionary and not have vision. It's impossible. It's impossible. You cannot hang around somebody positive and not be positive. Right? Are you going to be different by next week? No. But over time, I'm telling you. And you can't be positive and hang around negative people and remain positive. See, this is another reason why, shameless plug, this is another reason why I want to do this series on called Ecclesia. This is another reason why I want to do this series on church. Because I need for us to understand what Jesus meant when he created the church and what the church is supposed to be, so that we can hurry up and be that. Because and I'm not going to give it away, but there is a way that the church is supposed to be. And the way it's supposed to be, listen to me, we are supposed to be going viral. We're supposed to be going viral with what the church is supposed to be. But we don't, because we've lost the vision of ecclesia. Now listen, starting this week, we're going to learn this. Listen, y'all gonna learn something. Y'all, I promise. Hang around. Hang with Coleman. You're gonna learn something. I promise you. You're gonna learn something. So we're going to do this study called Ecclesia starting this Sunday on the church. The title of the message Sunday, unless God gives me another title, the title is Ecclesia, What Is It? So we're going to start at the base bones of this thing, right? What is it? What is church? Right? That's where we starting. And so again, because the church ought to be something that goes viral. It ought to be something that goes viral. Like, I'm serious though. I'm like, listen, fathers ought to want even if they don't worship God, even if they don't know God, they should want their daughters to marry Christian men because of how Christian men treat women. Listen to me. But if we treating women the way everybody else is treating women, what's the difference between the world and the church? We gonna learn something about ecclesia. But y'all, mark my words. And bring somebody with you, right? I'm serious. Bring somebody with you. This whole ecclesia thing. Bring someone with you. So, again, this thing is contagious. So you guard your heart, right? But then he says, you got to guard your mouth. But watch this. Also, oh, wait. I ain't finished. I'm not finished. Watch. Watch this. No perverse or corrupt talk, right? Just say that with me right now. Just say that with me. Just say no perverse or corrupt talk, right? Just nice and calm. No perverse or corrupt talk. This is your assignment for the next week. No perverse or corrupt talk. Are y'all hearing me? Are y'all with me? No perverse or corrupt talk. Are y'all hearing me? You with me? We rocking, we rolling, we tracking. No perverse or corrupt talk. Okay, here we go. Watch this. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. We're talking about guarding the heart. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Now, that word unwholesome talk is a word which means, in the Greek, it means rotten fish. You missed it? I'll give it to you again. It means rotten fish. It is a word which means something that is not good for anything. So when he says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, what he's saying is, don't let anything come out of your mouth that is not good for anything. It's rotten fish. Everybody with me? So watch this. He says, but, right? A conjunction of contrast, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Whoa. Hold on. Rewind the tape. Wait. Watch what he says. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for, underline this, building others up according to, underline, their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Listen, in this one verse, 3 times he pivots to other people. So he says, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful to building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. So that, watch. He says, don't say anything, don't talk about anything that isn't beneficial for somebody else. Oh my gosh. Don't post anything that isn't beneficial for somebody else. Listen, and he says, but only what is helpful for building others up. Don't miss this next part. He says, watch this, according to their needs. Oh my God. So not only do I have to say things that are beneficial for other people, but I got to say things that are beneficial to them that build them up according to their needs. Well, how do I do that? The text is begging us, is telling us, is commanding us to get to know people and to be sensitive to the needs that other people have. How? See, and I'm listen. This is not easy. There's work I gotta do. This is not easy. My question for you though is this. Watch this. Do we care enough about the needs of others? And do we care enough about the needs of others that the needs of others trump what we want to say? Do we care enough? Husband, do we care enough about our wives to say what's best for her to build her up according to her needs, even if we're angry? Wives, do you care about your husband enough, even if you're angry or upset, to say the things to him that not that you want to say, but what he needs to hear in order to build him up, to be the person you want him to be so you won't have to be mad or angry? Are we as parents, do we care about our kids enough to say to them what they need to hear based on their needs, rather than trying to rather than feeling because we're the parent that we just got the right to dominate and say what we want to say? But do we care enough about our own kids to that when we speak, we're speaking what builds them up according to not what we want to say, but according to what they need to hear? Do we love each other as believers enough? Do we care enough to address each other, to talk to each other, to say things to each other as believers, as brothers and sisters in Christ? Do we care enough about each other to say things to each other, even if they're difficult conversations? But do we care enough to craft our words so that our words are what they need to hear more than what we want to say? Are we willing to take what it is we want to say and craft it in such a way that it builds them up based upon what their needs are? Like, or are we like, Coleman, that's just too much work. Like, because we like to shoot from the hip. Let me mind my own business. Here we go. All right, so let's go. Luke 6:43. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes, nor grapes from briars. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his what? Heart. And the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his what? Heart. For out of the overflow of his heart, his mouth speaks. Right? There it is. So this is a good test, right? This right here is a good test. This is a good meter. If you want to find out what's in somebody's heart, just listen to them. Just listen to them. Why? Because out of the abundance of the heart, he says right there in the text, the mouth is going to speak it. Now, you got to be careful of manipulators. Okay? Now, how do you be careful of manipulators? Easy. What you want to pay attention to is not what someone is trying to say. What you want to pay attention to are sort of the idle conversations that people have when they're not really monitoring their words. They're just talking. And when people are just talking, they reveal who they are sooner than right now and quicker than not yet. So if you want to find out what's in someone's heart, just catch them talking. Just regular old talking. And when you catch them regular old talking, when you catch them, and they just, it's not a, they're not crafting their words because they're trying to make up, they're trying to disprove a point you're making, or they're trying to impress you, or no. It's just a regular conversation. Just regular, pay attention. Pay attention. Because they're about to tell you who they are. Because the mouth speaks what's in the heart. All right? Now, let's go. I'm running out of time. Here we go. So the first one, you got to control. We have to control our mouths. And then the second part is we have to control the eyes. Okay? We have to control the eyes. He says in verse 25, let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Okay? So you got to control your eyes. Now, number one, I want you to write this down. Everything interesting doesn't deserve your attention. Somebody need to hear that. Everything interesting doesn't deserve your attention. You missed it, I'll give it to you again. Everything interesting doesn't deserve your attention. Now, here is an addiction that a lot of us are going to have to walk ourselves back from. We're going to have to walk ourselves back from spending way too much time online. I'm just saying. The social media companies have figured out how to make social media addictive. And for many of us, we spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours every day, not researching, not looking for stuff to that helps us. No, we spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours looking at things online that are interesting, but they just waste time. Like they don't do anything for us. And really, at a certain level, some of that stuff that's interesting, it really actually downgrades us. Some of that stuff challenges our intelligence. It just does. Some of it is funny, nothing wrong, right? And you got to understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you can't do, you know what I mean, that you can't do recreational stuff and, but recreation has an end to it. You know what I mean? Like it just does. Recreation has an end to it. And so the problem with social media is that there's no end. There's no end. You can, and y'all know what I'm talking about. You could open your Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, and you say, okay, and you just checking stuff. You just checking to see who sent you messages or who liked the post you posted or whatever, and you just checking. And hours later, and you like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like you open your phone at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Listen, you still on the phone and you close it. It's 1:30. And you're like, oh my God, like you didn't wasted the whole day. Or nothing though. Like you haven't learned anything. You haven't grown in any kind of way. Nothing's improved who you were. And so everything interesting, it doesn't deserve your attention. It just doesn't. And you got to be careful because some of us, we watch so much stuff that we get triggered in certain ways. Right? And you got to be careful with that. So I'm not going to go deep into that, but just know that. Number two, we can't be, and here's a big thing. We can't unsee things we see. Right? That's another reason why you got to guard your eyes because you can't unsee things you see. You can't. Right? We were on a cruise one time. I think I told you guys this story, but we were on a cruise one time, and they had this game that they play, and I always forget the names. My wife remembers all that stuff, but we were on a cruise, and they had this game, and so, and anybody from the ship, you could go to the game and you could play the game or whatever. And when we got there, the game started off really cool. And it was like, okay, take an egg and toss it back and forth. And then, you spread the people apart. And then if the egg breaks, then you're out. And if you keep the egg. That was kind of cool. And then they had this other thing, that was kind of cool. And if you can bring me a belt or something like that, or because they separated the audience in sections. So it was like, okay, if section A, if you guys could bring me 10 belts all looped together, then people were taking off their belts and looping them together and giving them to the leader, and the leader was rushing out to be the first. All of that was fine. But then they did this. I'm going to skip over the other stuff. They did this one thing where they said, we need a man over here and a woman over here. And with whoever exchanges clothes the fastest, and runs out to the center wins. And so when I tell you, like you had people swapping drawers, men putting on bras, and like people are getting undressed in front of the crowds, and people out there butt naked because they're trying to win this contest. And it's like, and we were there, and our section, we had some people, and they were doing it, and we were all looking like, and my daughter said, Rihanna said, I wasn't expecting to see penis in this game. And then there was another guy behind us, and he was like, and so, right, because the dude was taking clothes or all kind of stuff. And the dude was sitting back, he was like, I can't unsee that. I can't unsee that. That's going to haunt me all night. Listen, I'm telling you, listen to me. You got to protect your eyes because you can't unsee things you see. Right? You can't. Right? Have you guys ever been there? Have you guys ever saw some stuff you wish you hadn't? Have you guys ever been exposed to some things that you wish you could reel back in and that you never had been exposed to? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody ever been addicted to porn and you wish, because of how difficult it is to get away from it, you wish you never would have laid your eyes on it in the first place? Right? So here we go. Protect the eyes. Let's go. Let's get it. Psalm 101, verse 3. I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. Right? That's David. I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. Now, David learned his lesson when he sinned with Bathsheba. So David said, I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. Psalm 119:37. Turn my eyes from worthless things and give me life through your word. So this is the prayer. This is a prayer that you can pray to God. This is a prayer that was prayed to God about our eyes. Turn my eyes from worthless things and give me life through your word. Right? And so watch this. Hebrews 12:1-2. Because the question is, I gotta be careful of my eyes. But then what do I focus on? Here we go. Hebrews 12:1-2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on who? Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. So, in other words, what the text is teaching is that if the believer is going to be successful at living the life of a believer, there is something that we need to focus on in order to kind of set the tone for what we need to do. We need to be looking at the right things in order to observe, to imitate, to mimic what it is that we should be doing, or how we should be. Right? Y'all with me? Y'all with me? So when he says keep your eyes on Jesus, the idea is take the teachings of Jesus, take the words of Jesus, take the ideas of Jesus, and I would say this, memorize them. Like, become so familiar with the Gospels, because that's where the majority of his teachings are. Become so familiar with the Gospels that when you go in your life from day to day, you're constantly looking in your mind, in your memory, you're constantly looking at what Jesus did and how he did it, and when he did it, and what the circumstances were surrounding it. And all of a sudden, you'll find yourself self-checking, and you'll be like, man, like I can't do that. Like Jesus didn't do that. How did he handle that? How did he do that? And again, that's keeping him at the center and the focus. Right? Which means you got to read, right? Which means you have to expose yourself. You got to open yourself up to the word and actually digest it, eat it, you know what I mean? All of that. So, but that's the way that we control our eyes. So the best way to control your eyes, listen to me carefully. The best way to control your eyes is to listen. This is going to sound weird. The best way to control your eyes is to not, don't try to not look at something. Don't do that. Don't try to not look at something. Right? Okay, Coleman, you contradicting yourself. No, I'm not. Just hear me out. Because the moment you try to not look at something, it's the very thing you look at. See? Watch this. Don't look at this mouse. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Right? What you're looking at? The mouse. Right? That's like somebody telling you, don't think about a pink elephant. The moment they say that, first thing pops in your head is what? A pink elephant. And so that is not the way you get control of your eyes, is where you're trying to not see something. The way you get control of your eyes is that you just look at something else. That's the way you do it. Something else has to be more attractive. Something else has to be more important. Something else has to be more stimulating. And so the way that you stop looking at something is that you focus on something else. You put your attention someplace else. It's not that I gotta not look at this, right? And you just close your eye, because after a while it's stupid. It's like, okay, I can't go around with my eyes closed all the time. No, but what I do need to do is, instead of looking at this, I need to redirect exactly what I'm looking at, right? So redirection is the answer, not withdrawal. Redirection, not withdrawal, right? So hopefully that helps, right? And again, that may seem overly simplistic, but I'm telling you, it is powerful. It is powerful. To redirect is way more powerful than to withdraw and not try to and not look at something. You just redirect it, right? And so here we go. How much time I got? Ah, dang, I'm out of time. I think I'm out of time. Yeah, I'm not gonna push it. All right, so I'm out of time. I'll finish this next week. Okay, I promise you. I promise you, we'll finish next week. So we'll pick up from here, because I got one more thing on the eyes, and then we'll get into the feet, and that'll be the end of Beneath the Surface. But what I don't want you to forget is you have to protect your heart. The first way you protect your heart is that you guard your mouth. The second way is that you guard your eyes. You protect your eyes. And again, I'm just kind of slowly walking us through each one of these so that our hearts can be protected. Okay. And so next week we'll talk about the eyes some more, and then I'm going to show you next week. I'm going to talk a little bit about addiction and how addictions start, because a lot of that stuff has to do with our eyes too. Okay. And so we'll talk about all of that. All right. So do you guys have any questions for me? Any questions for me? Anything I can help you with? Any way I can answer any questions for you guys, particularly related to anything that we've covered tonight? Just put it in the chat, and then I'll try to answer as best I can. And so I'll wait just a couple of minutes and see if any questions come in. And if not, then we'll pray out. Once again, I want to remind you, this Saturday is funeral service for Miss Patsy Linder, formerly Patsy Carson, and it'll be at the church at PFBC 3069 Research Drive. So we'll be meeting there Saturday morning for her services. And I'm going to ask that you would please pray for the family, and pray for also Miss Aisha and Caitlin, as well as for the loss of Chris. And please pray for Rosanna's son, KJ, for his continued healing and recovery. And I'm sure that there's others. I just can't think of it. His name is CJ. So make sure you pray for CJ as well. And there are others, I'm sure. I just don't know of others that need prayer. But those are the three specific persons and focuses that I know of that I could lift up to you. Also, don't forget, this Sunday I'm starting a brand new series called Ecclesia, which is a study on the church. And trust me, you will want to be there. It's going to be informative. Bring your notebooks, bring something to write with so that you can take good notes, and bring somebody with you, right? So bring yourself, bring your notebook, and then bring somebody with you. Okay? So make sure you do that. Ecclesia. Oh, yes. Thank you, Miss Ravonda. Please pray for Brother Joseph Coleman and the Coleman family, right? Please pray for Brother Joseph. And so he's he had been dealing with cancer as well, and he talked about that at Dan's funeral. Um, and he was pushing to make sure that all of us as men, that we do the best that we can to go get checked, right? Prostate as well as colon. Make sure that we're doing our screenings and all of that stuff. And so please pray for Brother Joseph Coleman as well. Okay. All right. So I don't see any questions coming in. So let's have a word of prayer, and then I'll let you go. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for blessing us to be on tonight. We thank you for all that we have seen, all that we have heard, all that we've learned. We thank you for teaching us from your word, from your text. And God, we just ask that you would allow us to not just hear it, but to make it a part of our lives so that we can be better. My prayer, Lord, is that we would learn how to guard our hearts, so that our lives would turn out better because we're in your will. But we also want to be able to protect those who are connected to us, and they need us to guard our hearts as well, so that we're not infecting them with the different heart traps that sometimes we can find ourselves in. Father, I lift up CJ to you. I lift up Joseph Coleman. I lift up Aisha and Caitlin. I lift up Fred to you. And I ask, Lord, that you would please bless each and every one of these families. Touch them in ways that only you know they need you to show up and touch them at this moment. And so, Father, meet every need that they have, and give them your strength and your peace at this time. Father, we thank you. And God, I'm asking that you would equip us as their church family to love them, and to love them deeply, to care about them, to be concerned about them, to check in with them, to make sure that all of their needs are met. I pray, Father, that we would say the right things. And for some of us, that means saying nothing. It's just being present. And so, God, I'm asking that you would give us, that you would help us to not mess this up, but to make it a God thing for all of them, so that as they're walking through their times of struggle, they will be able to look back and say, God loved me through my church family. And Father, I ask that you would do all of these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I appreciate all of you for showing up. And I want to say thank you to David Jackson for filling in the last couple of weeks and doing a fantastic job with Bible study. And so let's give Dave a good PFBC thank you, and let him know how much we appreciate his gift and ability to teach and to break the word of God down in such a way that when I'm gone, you guys don't miss anything. You guys get all the good stuff, whether I'm here or whether I'm gone. All right. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. I love you. I promise you I do. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday if God says the same. God bless you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.